Good evening, everyone. I am Anodea Judith, your hostess tonight for this journey through the chakras, understanding your chakras, the 7 keys to transformation. My name is Anodea Judith, and I have been lucky enough to have found the key to something valuable in the chakra system about 40 years ago, I must say. And that I have been working with the system top down, bottom up, inside out, spiraling around. I've looked at it as a process of spiritual transformation, of psychological healing, of understanding our cultural and collective history and evolution, of manifestation, of a spiral into the heart. I guess I could say I've looked at chakras from all sides, having worked with this system for, as I say, nearly 40 years now. 20 years of that, I was a psychotherapist working with people's issues that came into my workshop, into my office. Then I transferred my work over more to the workshop realm, and I've been on the road for the last 20 years teaching. I've also worked with the chakras through yoga and all kinds of metaphysics. And I am delighted to have the opportunity tonight to present to you. I have a little slideshow to go with it, a little introduction to the chakra system. But even if you are familiar with chakras, I think you may pick up a few new things because I think I have a bit of a unique way of looking at it. So I'm very thankful to the Theosophical Publishing House and to Jim Bosco for sponsoring this workshop. Settle back. I would actually like to begin this seminar on the inside. So close your eyes and settle down into your seat and find your way to an erect spine. And as you sit, and this is something that you can practice any time that you sit down, and we do a lot of that in this culture, is to just sort of take your tailbone to the back of your seat. And that's true whether you're sitting cross-legged on the floor, whether you're sitting in a chair, whether you're getting in your car ready to drive, whether you're sitting down to a meal, watching TV, or sitting down at your computer. So what that does is you take your tailbone to the back as it kind of widens your base. So it opens up your ground and gives you some stability. So just imagine tailbone to the back, widening your hips. And you know how a tree comes down and then kind of flutes out as it goes towards the ground. Well, in the same way, our chakra system comes down the middle, and you can think of it kind of fluting out, making a nice wide base. So we extend our base, and out of that, we imagine sending roots down into the earth, sending them down wherever you are at the moment, whether you're on a 4th floor apartment, whether you're in a chair, whether you're sitting on the floor, just sending the roots right down below your body into the earth. And that's sort of like plugging in a television set so it can receive on all the different frequencies. And the chakras are frequencies that we can receive information, experience, input, and we want to be plugged in to the body in order to receive on all these frequencies. So the first step is sending the roots down, and at the same time that you're keeping your roots down, extend your crown upward. So you're lifting the top of your head while you're extending your sitting bones down into the chair. And in doing so, you're spreading your spine in 2 opposite directions. And just like working with a necklace where you pull apart the 2 parts of a necklace and all the beads on the necklace come into alignment, when we pull the 2 ends of the spine in opposite directions, the chakras begin to come into alignment. So just close your eyes and feel that connection between heaven and earth that occurs right through the very center and the core. And as you focus on that, think of it as like the capital letter I, the self, the core of the self. That is you, your unique being. And that as you inhale into that vertical column expands and the body softens. And as you exhale, there's a slight contraction into the core that allows the core to intensify or brighten. So we think of the outer body being soft and the inner body being bright. So we have several things going now. We're lifting the crown, we're extending the roots down, we're inhaling and expanding. And we are exhaling and embracing the core. And just like when someone gives you an embrace or gives you a hug, you might brighten up. We embrace our core with unconditional love. And in that embrace of love, the core brightens up. So anytime you feel a little out of sorts or scattered, you can just come into this simple little meditation as a basic alignment and find your way to your vertical sacred center. Okay, well, rather than spend time in silent meditation when we're on a call, I would like to forward to the first slide, and this should be seen on your computer. And this is just introducing the chakra system as a map for human consciousness, as a map for the evolutionary journey, as a map for manifestation, as a map for navigating our way through life. And I would imagine that most of you on this call, if not all of you, have for some time been on a journey where you are trying to figure out what life is all about. You're trying to figure out yourself. You're trying to heal your wounds. You're trying to figure out why we're here, what the universe is made of, what it all means. Most people who are doing some seeking, and that's most of us these days, are asking these kind of questions. And it's not new. Many of us have been on this path for decades. And we have been trying different things, different therapies, different metaphysical systems. And, what I would say is, wouldn't it be nice if someone gave you a map? Because it's kind of hit or miss when we try all these things. Well, the chakra system is a map, and it maps on to the human nervous system. It maps on to the spine and the ganglia that are coming out from the spine, and you can see that a little bit in this picture, the little bundles of nerves that branch out from the spinal column and connect to various organs. And the chakras literally map right on to these centers in the nervous system. And you can see there the 7 little chakras. And as we begin to, and actually that red dot should be a little bit more forward so things start to come into alignment. And so it maps on to what is internal. It also maps on to the external world and to various systems that we have had. For instance, Freud talked about the id, the ego and the superego. Jung talked about the persona and the shadow and the anima and the animus. Ken Wilber talks about all quadrants and all levels. And many different theorists and philosophers have typified and divided and categorized the human consciousness and the psyche in different ways. And of course, many religions have done so as well. And one of the beauties about the chakra system is that it's a very universal system that can be used in any religion. It doesn't dictate what God you should believe in or what philosophy you should have. You can be Christian, you can be pagan, you can be Buddhist, you can be Jewish, you can be Muslim, you can be any religion and still find that you have chakras, just like we all have 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth, and they're shaped a little differently in different people, but we all have this basic structure, regardless of our race, regardless of our gender, regardless of our philosophical orientation. So the chakras are really a very universal system. And they also map on to sacred elements: earth, water, fire, air, sound, light, and thought. And so in these sacred elements, the first chakra is related to earth, and we will go into the individual chakras a little bit more later in the talk. I'm just going to lay out the general map right now. But what we want to see is that this map that has the sacred element of earth in the first chakra, that's not only something that occurs within our body, it's the flesh and the bones and the physical aspect of the body, but it also occurs in the outer world. We walk on the earth. We depend on the earth to survive. We eat food in order to live. We eat solid matter. We work with matter. So that's an essential aspect of both the inner world and the outer world. Water, we are 75% water. I'm sitting here as being basically a sack of water. And of course, water flows through me, liquid flows through my veins and arteries, my urinary system. I drink water, and water exists in the outer world. And we have to, it rains and we go swimming and we take showers and we wash and we cook, and water is an essential element that from the in to the out. Fire is our metabolism and our energy, and of course fire is in the outer world as energy and technology and power. Air is in my breath, and air is the field in which I'm enveloped. I'm enveloped in a field of gas and invisible oxygen and other elements. Sound, everything is vibration within me. I hear the sound of my own thoughts, and I can speak and I can listen. And of course you're hearing sound right now. Light is how I see, and light is outside, but we also have an inner light when we close our eyes. And thought or consciousness, which is within, but there's also a field of consciousness around us that we are embedded in, the consciousness we share with each other, the divine consciousness, the internet. There's many different aspects of consciousness. So the chakras map onto all these levels as well. And in that, they are a vertical column of energy that is sometimes called the rainbow bridge. And I joke with my students when I teach workshops that, I'm in the room the first day of the workshop as people are filing in the door. And when I introduce myself, I often say, think of me as a bus driver. And the route that I was given in this lifetime, my karma or my dharma, or however you want to look at it, the route that I was given is to drive people in a bus back and forth across the Rainbow Bridge. And the Rainbow Bridge is said to be that which connects heaven to earth, that which connects the mortal to the divine, that which connects mind to body, spirit to matter. And the 7 vibratory modalities of the chakras that are so often correlated to the rainbow colors represent that rainbow bridge that exists within our very selves right at the core. So each one of us is a connection between heaven and earth. Now, some of the mythology around the rainbow bridge says that as doomsday approaches, the rainbow bridge will break down, and heaven and earth will no longer be in communication. They'll no longer be connected. And so as part of my life's work to revive the chakra system in the Western world as a viable system for personal healing and evolution and collective evolution, I believe that by healing the corridor, the vertical column of energy in which the chakras reside, by opening that up again, each person becomes their own rainbow bridge, and heaven and earth become more in connection, that this is a way of actually averting doomsday. And so reclaiming the rainbow bridge is your most direct access to source at all its different levels of manifestation. And so as we look at this profound system, and so many people have mapped different characteristics onto the chakras, let's just start with some of the basic levels of consciousness. So the first chakra at the base represents our instinctual consciousness. We are hardwired with instincts. We know that if we go to a doctor and he hits a little hammer on our knee, that the leg moves, and if there's a loud noise, we jump, and if we're cold, we shiver, and if we're hot, we sweat. And if we're hungry, we start thinking about food. And if we're tired, we yawn. These are all hardwired into the body for the purpose of survival. And that's our instinctual level of consciousness. It's very deep in the brain, in the reptilian brain, really, that is about survival. Then in the next chakra, second chakra, we come into our emotional consciousness, our awareness of our feelings, and that whole aspect that, has the emotions can get triggered and they can come up in a moment. We can feel sad or happy or angry or scared or excited or worried. And that's all another aspect of our consciousness. It's a little bit above the instincts, a little more sophisticated, and yet it's still largely almost in the unconscious. It happens by itself. We can become aware of it. Then we come into the third chakra, often called the power chakra, and we come into our egoic consciousness. That's the one that says, well, who am I, and what am I all about, and what's my game plan, and where am I going? And from there, we come into a more relational consciousness. That's the heart chakra. It's about relationships and love, and how do I relate to you, and how do I relate to the world, and how do things in the world relate to each other, and what is this, field of perpetual reciprocity, as I like to say, that we are embedded in. Then we have our creative consciousness, our creative intelligence, our visionary intelligence, our ability to see and imagine out of the third eye, and our transcendent consciousness that is our way of accessing the divine, accessing the beyond, a way of moving beyond the limitations of the mind, focusing on any one thing, to the experience of consciousness itself, consciousness without an object. And at the same time that we have these different levels of consciousness, we also have different issues that happen in the chakras. So in the first chakra, we have our security issues. Are we safe? Are we grounded? Can we provide for our own survival needs? Can we make enough money? Do we have right livelihood? We have our issues around pleasure and sexuality and even emotions. Is it safe to feel? Is it safe to want something? Is it okay to have pleasure? We have our issues around taking power and moving into action. Is it okay to move into action? Do we know what we're doing? Do we have the authority to do so? We have the issues relating to love and relationship. And believe me, there's a lot of issues that people have there. We have issues around creativity and self-expression. In the upper chakras, it's less about issues than it is about development, developing our intuition, our psychic faculties, if you will, our ability to dream and imagine. And of course, in the crown chakra, realization. Do we realize with full consciousness where we are, what we're about? This is the understanding that comes from awareness and moving our consciousness down in. And there's many other correspondences, and as we get into the individual chakras, we'll be sharing more of those. But this is just a way to begin to see how different aspects of consciousness map onto the chakras and map onto the body as well. And in fact, that's some of where it came from, that, where the chakra is located. Well, the third chakra is located right over your belly in your digestive system, and the heart chakra over the lungs, and the throat chakra over the throat where we speak, and the third eye, right between our two physical eyes. So there's a certain logic to where the chakras are located and what their interpretation is. Okay, so now we get to the really big question of the night that everyone is probably dying to have answered, though I know you have your own answers already. What is a chakra? And though that might be obvious, you already know that, or you probably wouldn't have signed on to this call, I'd like to go into a little bit deeper definition. And there's many different ways to look at it. It's an energy center, and one reason I go into this is people just use the word all kinds of ways, and you've got chakra issues, and that's a closed chakra, and that's an open chakra, and they just throw the word around, but I don't know that we really have a depth of understanding of what it really is. So, we know that it's an energy center, that there is energy concentrated in different parts of the body. And we looked earlier on how that maps onto ganglia in the nervous system. We just mentioned how it's a state of consciousness or a stage or a lens through which our awareness is looking at the world. Like, am I looking at the world as a power struggle? Am I looking at the world as, something that's going to meet my needs? Am I looking at the world as possibility, as creativity? Some see it as a program that is etched onto, remember the day when we had floppy disks before we had CDs and hard drives? And each disk had a program etched onto it. Well, the word chakra from the Sanskrit actually means wheel or disc. And I'm sure this is not what the ancients had in mind, but in this day and age, you can think of each chakra as a basic program that has been programmed into your mind-body system. So you have a survival program that tells you, in the way you put it together for yourself, what kind of food you should eat and how much of it, and whether you should exercise and what kind, and how much sleep you need, and when you need to take vitamin C, and when you feel safe. That's all part of your survival program. We tend to have a sexual program. What's our preference? Are we gay? Are we straight? We have a relationship program that says, well, we should be together all the time, or, I want more closeness, or I want more distance. We certainly have a language program. And if you didn't have the language English programmed onto your biocomputer, you wouldn't be understanding my words right now. So these are all programs, and programming can be faulty at times. So we have to get down into the chakras sometimes and rewrite the programs that were given to us. I see them as portals between the inner world and the outer world. And so I am here in my inner temple. There's an inner palatial place that I can access in my meditations and as I find the interior of the chakras, a place in my psyche and my being that can open up. And that portal exists within, but it's also a way that I relate from the inner world to the outer world. So, in a love relationship, I relate through my heart chakra, from what I feel in my own heart to connecting with someone else's heart. A portal right now between my thoughts and my words coming out to where you're hearing them and you're turning them into your own thoughts and words. So these are portals between the inner world and outer world. And as portals, we want the openings to be clear, like a clean window, so that we can see out clearly and that we can receive from the outside. So a lot of energy is going in and out horizontally through the chakras. Now, some see them just as a metaphor and don't believe that chakras really exist. And, to those people, I say that's fine. As a metaphor, it creates a very profound philosophical system. And you don't even have to believe that you have actual chakras in your body. I mean, no one ever did surgery and, and took out a chakra and held it up and said, see, here's your throat chakra. I just took it out. That's not going to happen. It's not anything physical any more than an emotion is something that you can operate on and hold it in your hand. But they are metaphors for a 7-leveled philosophical system that is deep and profound. And you could just look at it that way. To me, they are really the Holy of Holies. And, what I mean by that is that there is a place you can access from deep within your inner temple that opens up something very profound. And it is like the center of the mystery. And as you work with the chakras over, the decades, you find deeper and deeper access into these interior holy places. They also represent evolutionary stages of consciousness. And I'm very fond of this topic, and I just finished a book that is due out literally any day now. In fact, our Amazon date to buy the book is July 16th. So we know that the books will be in-house by July 16th. They may even be there earlier, in which I take the chakra system and I map it on to stages of consciousness of human collective evolution and show how the first chakra was our Paleolithic period, the old Stone Age, when we were living close to the earth and we were hunting and gathering and living in caves. That was a very first chakra survival oriented stage. And then as we came into communities and procreated and had many children and started to work together, we came into the second chakra, learned to plant and farm and use water for agriculture and the beginning of shipbuilding and trade. That was the second chakra stage. And that then we came into the third chakra in our first empires. That was someone, very strong, taking power, telling other people what to do. And we built a hierarchical civilization that started about 5,000 years ago. And that we've been in the third chakra for 5,000 years. And right now we are on the cusp of an immense change in the world that I say is changing our operating system, our organizing principle from being in the third chakra, what I call the love of power, to the fourth chakra, power of love. And that's a new organizing principle for humanity. So the book I just wrote about that is called The Global Heart Awakens, Humanity's Rite of Passage from the Love of Power to the Power of Love. And that maps the evolutionary stages of humanity onto the chakra system. So, but I also have a personal definition for chakras that kind of sums all this up. And that is that chakras are centers of organization for the reception, so we receive, the assimilation, and the transmission of life force energy. So in other words, you are receiving these words right now through your ears, through your language center. You are assimilating them. You're going, I agree with that. I don't agree with that. That makes sense. Gee, I want to write this down. You're assimilating it into your own worldview, maybe translating it into your own language if English is not your language. And then maybe later, if you're a teacher, you will transmit it to one of your students, or you'll tell somebody else, oh, I went to this seminar tonight and here's what I learned. So we do this with food. We receive it, we assimilate it into vitamins and minerals, and we turn it into energy. We do it with light, with consciousness. We get an idea, we receive it, we assimilate it, we may teach it, we may, turn it into something. So we're doing this at each chakra level with each of the elements, with earth, water, fire, air, sound, light, and thought. And we want this center of organization to be wonderfully functional for handling that kind of energy. And wonderfully functional does not mean that it's absolutely empty. So if you think of the chakras, actually I'm going to go forward, well, I'll get to that in a moment. The slide's a little out of order for what I'm saying, but another way to look at chakras is this life force energy that they assimilate and receive, assimilate, and transmit is moving through us all the time. Some call it prana, some call it chi. In acupuncture, we have meridians that go up and down the body in a continuous grid and web, and that carries energy. You can think of the meridians as highways for the prana or the chi, and the chakras as ways, as places where it's like cities. If you looked at a map, you'd see highways, and then you'd see every so often a big city where many highways, many types of energy converge. And in fact, in a city, you have, electrical wires converging, you have plumbing converging, you have roads converging, you have lots of people. So you have lots of activity of many different dimensions, if you will. And the highways are how you transport energy back and forth to those cities. So the chakras are like the cities and the meridians are like the highways. And this life force energy influences our consciousness, our health, how we feel, and all of the rest. Now, a way to look at this energy is that the body is our hardware. And, you can have a Mac or a PC or a desktop or a laptop. In our body, we are either male or female. I happen to be blonde and blue-eyed. Somebody else might be a redheaded with freckles. We could be tall or short, wide or thin. That's our hardware. And that's structured in our DNA. We can make some changes in it, like gaining or losing weight or working out at the gym. But basically, my hardware is going to be mine for life. I'm female, I'm this tall. That's probably not going to change too much unless I get very slouched over as I get older. And onto that hardware, we have put software. And we have been programmed from the time we were born, or even some could argue from deep within the womb. We've been programmed with language, with belief systems, with habits. We've been programmed with certain emotional characteristics. And that has been like the software that has been laid into our hardware. And the energy is what allows the software and hardware to connect. So in your computer, let's imagine a laptop, for example, or a cell phone. If there's charge in the battery, the software and the hardware can connect, and you can use the computer. And if there's no energy going through it, it doesn't matter whether you got the best computer money can buy. It doesn't matter whether you loaded it with all the latest software. If your battery goes dead and you don't have a power cord, all of that is useless. So what's happening in the human body is that the mind and everything I believe and think and my habits, conscious and unconscious, and all the things that I've experienced and the contents of my memory, that's all software that exists in my hardware. And what my mind is always doing is telling my energy where to go in the body and where not to go. So, if I'm standing up in front of a group of people, I go, pull in your stomach, take your shoulders back, lift your chest, look like you're strong, be grounded. And that's sort of my mind or my internal programming telling my energy what to do. And someone who feels terribly shy, for example, might have a different program, and they get in a crowd of people and their programming says, don't say a word, people are going to laugh at you, people are going to make fun, you don't know what to say, and that program will shut them down. So our programs govern our life force energy. And the idea of doing chakra work is to get the bugs out of the programs and begin to open that life force energy up again to its full expression so that we feel fully alive. And with that aliveness, we have more consciousness. Okay, so the software, again, is here, what has been programmed into us from the time that we are so young, and we get it not just from books, but from television, from our parents, from being yelled at, from school, from brothers and sisters. We get it everywhere, and we carry it throughout our life, and that gets mapped onto the body, and the energy is what awakens. Oops, that word went behind the body, but it's supposed to say awaken. We want to awaken the life force. And so the chakras can be seen as the meeting point between mind and body. They are the mind-body interface. They are how the mind and body work together. And as I say, other cultures, it's talking about the same life force energy as ki or chi or prana or the force, or in bioenergetics we talk about charge or orgone energy or bioenergy. There's lots of words for the same thing. But what this energy does is it allows the continuum between heaven and earth to hook up, and as the consciousness comes down and the energy comes up, so to speak, you can see that they spiral around each other, creating the energy vortices that are the chakras. And of course, this life force energy has been mapped by many people and diagrammed, and we can see this as these are chambers in the temple of the body. And so here, as we've seen the map of the chakras over and over again on the body, but just like the chambers in your home are designed for different purposes, you bring food into your kitchen and you entertain in your living room and you sleep in your bedroom, you want that chamber to be appropriately set up. You want a nice kitchen where there's a good refrigerator and lots of counter space and cupboard space, and you want a living room with comfortable things to sit on. And so we want our chakras to be equipped with what we need to embrace different kinds of energy, and so that we really can receive it, assimilate it, and transmit it. And so I want to give you a little experience right here of a way to open up the chakras in your hands. And I do this because it's a very simple exercise that can give you a sense of what I mean by energy. So if you could, just take your hands out in front of you, straight out, with one hand up and one hand down, like this, straight out, elbows straight. And open and close your palms very rapidly. All the way open, all the way closed. So just continue doing that a little bit. And then turn them over the other way when your hands are getting tired, and open and close and open and close. This is the basic expansion and contraction of the universe. We do this with every breath. The stars do it with light. The earth actually expands and contracts every day. And now take your hands just in a relaxed manner. Let's see if I can get in the camera here. And slowly bring them together until they're about 4 to 6 inches apart. And when you do, you should be able to feel a little bit of energy between your palms. It's very subtle. It's like a magnetic field that you can just barely sense, maybe a little buzzing, a little tingling, a little electric polarity. So that's what it feels like to open a chakra in its simplest level. And the hand chakras are the easiest to do that with because, first of all, when I open my hand, it becomes more sensitive to feeling. And then the other hand is open, so there's more to feel. So not only is there more to feel, I can feel it more easily. So this is usually a pretty foolproof way that people can actually experience this life force energy. And in fact, I did this at a talk one night. I do an evening presentation a lot, and afterwards this woman came up to me and she put her hands on her hips and she said, "Anodea, you ruined my life tonight." I said, "Excuse me? What do you mean by that?" And she said, "Well, I'm a physicist, and you had me feel something that I'm not supposed to feel, and I actually felt it, and I have no explanation for it." And I said, "Well, welcome to the mystery." And I knew she was just joking with me, but it is something that even the skeptic can usually at least feel in their hands. And so we can also do the same expansion and contraction with the body, but it gets a little more complicated. And this is what gives birth to the many, many yoga poses that are designed in many ways to enhance the flow of prana or chi or energy through the body by moving into different postures. And we know that the word, and in fact the chakra system comes from the yoga tradition. We know that the word yoga in Sanskrit actually means yoke or union. It's a way of yoking the philosophy, the practices, the breath, the meditation, the asanas. They're all a way of yoking the individual mortal to an aspect of the divine, to the divine itself, to the universal. And so the chakra system actually came out of the yoga tradition during the tantric period of yoga philosophy, which is about 500 to 1000 AD. Now, people say the chakra system is thousands of years old, and that is probably true as an esoteric tradition. It was probably an oral tradition long before it was written down. But the books and the texts that actually talk about the chakra system come more from this tantric period of yoga philosophy, and that's when they were written down. Now, the word tantra also means, tan is to stretch, and tra is a tool. Just like mantra is a tool for the mind, tantra is a tool for stretching. And it also implied a loom. Now, we know on a loom that what we do is we take a thread and we take it from one side to the other. We go all the way to one edge, all the way to the other side, back again, back and forth and back and forth. And then after we've done that, we take another thread and we go over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. So we are always integrating polarities in weaving a fabric. And the tantrics believe that their weaving together of many spiritual traditions were a weaving of the fabric of reality. And that fabric of reality was born in part through polarities. And some of those polarities are heaven and earth, so the spirit and matter, mind and body, inner and outer, portals between inner and outer, masculine and feminine, expansion and contraction, strength and flexibility, and of course this is just a few. We could say light and shadow, many different polarities, and as we weave them together, we create the fabric of reality. Now we know in the world today that the web of life or the fabric of reality is fraying in some places. We have, damage to the environment, and we have war-torn areas, and we have economic disasters, and you know um, environmental disasters. And my view that the way the web of life is fraying right now is because we are not honoring both sides of a polarity. We're not taking our thread all the way to the other side. So we say, well, heaven is more important, but the earth doesn't matter. And spirit is where we're going, but the body doesn't matter. And, it's all about the inner life and not the outer life, or it's all about the outer life and not the inner, or masculine is better than feminine. Or we should be expanding all the time and never take time to go inside and contract and pull back into yourself. Even in yoga, a lot of people think of yoga as just being about flexibility, but that's only half of it. You also want to develop strength. And if you have both strength and flexibility, then you have a way of moving energy through your body. So the chakra system is weaving all the time these polarities, and in that way, as vertical column of energy, it has its liberating current, which is moving from the lower chakras step by step up to the crown chakra, and we call that mukti in Sanskrit, and that means freedom or liberation. So we get from fixed forms, fixed earth, to water, which is freer, to fire, which is freer yet, to air, which is more expansive, to sound, which is invisible. Air is invisible too, but sound travels even farther. Light travels from a distant galaxy, and consciousness is everywhere at once. That's the liberating current. So we get free of fixed forms and move toward higher consciousness. But there's also a manifesting current, which in the ancient text is called bhukti, meaning enjoyment. And in bhukti, we start in consciousness with an idea, a concept. We imagine it in the sixth chakra. We visualize it. We dream about it. We talk about it in the fifth chakra. We bring it into relationship in the fourth chakra. We give it our energy and our will and our action in the third chakra. We give it our passion, and we move things along, move things forward in our life in the second chakra, until we finally manifest it in a physical form in the first chakra. So this is the downward manifesting current, where consciousness gets denser and denser at each level. And anything you want to manifest, you want to bring down this path. So another book that I wrote on this is called Creating on Purpose, the technology of manifesting through the chakras, and it's how to use the map of the chakra system as a way to stay on track for what you're trying to manifest in your life. Now, the chakras map onto the core, and as the core that connects heaven and earth, that is at the very center. The core is key. I have a saying that the body is the vehicle, consciousness is the driver of that vehicle. The chakra system is the map. I've been talking about it tonight as a map. The core is key. So you need a key to operate the vehicle, to move it along the map. And so getting into the core is really key. So what do I mean by core? I like to think of it as standing for consciousness organized in relation to energy, C-O-R-E. Or if you really get into the inner temple, I think of it as consciousness of coming into the resplendent energy. Consciousness organized in resplendent energy. So we see the resplendence of the inner world. But consciousness organized in relation to energy means that if some kind of energy is happening in my field, I'm perceiving it with my awareness, and I'm organizing my life force energy according to that. I can say, ooh, I don't want that, and I'm pulling away. I can say, oh yeah, I want more than that, and I'm moving toward it, I'm pulling it in. As children, we might have had something we didn't like, and we withdrew and we shut down. Or we might have had to really beef up our chakras in order to survive and get them bigger and overcompensate. And so that happens at the core. Now, what we have at the core is this life force energy. And as I said earlier, It has many names: prana, chi, ki, the force. I like to call it charge. I have worked as a bioenergetic therapist for many, many years, and that's a word that I picked up in my training. You can think of charge as standing for consciousness having a really genuine experience. So when you have a charge going on in your body, you know it. You might suddenly feel a shot of fear going through you. That's real. You don't have to say, am I feeling something? A lot of people get caught in their fear and they get paralyzed by it. Or you might feel suddenly terribly sad when you get the news of some tragedy. Or you might feel really excited, or you might feel really angry. You say, oh, I got a real charge on that issue. Or another way to experience charge is sexual arousal. When you're turned on to someone or you're engaged in foreplay, there's a charge building and that is then released in orgasm. So this charge is something we can all relate to. We have it all the time. And the charge is the life force. When we have a lot of charge, ideally we feel very alive and full and resonant and excited and and alive. But when that charge hits blockages or body armor, it becomes uncomfortable because the charge is actually wanting to be released, and the armoring says, oh no, it's not safe to open my mouth, or oh no, it's not safe to take action here, or it's not safe to open my heart and love. And yet the charge inside wants to pierce the chakras and open up. And the programming that we have engaged in comes all the way down into the body hardware and says, oh no, you don't. And so the charge pushes up against that programming and we experience discomfort. It's actually trying to take us, it's sort of like it would take us out of our comfort zone. And somebody might say, oh, I wouldn't be comfortable talking about that at the dinner table, or I wouldn't be comfortable dancing, or I wouldn't be comfortable speaking in front of a group of people, or I wouldn't be comfortable confronting someone on a particular issue. And that's really that the charge, either there isn't enough of it or there's too much and they would feel it pushing against their blockages. So the idea is to remove the blockages so that we can have the full flow of charge moving into and out through our chakras. Now we talk about chakras having a front or a back. I think of the front as what we're moving toward, and in that way the chakras are what we're aware of, what's in front of us, what's in my conscious mind. The back of the chakras I think of as the past, as what I'm not aware of, as the unconscious. I don't really see what's behind my body right now. Well, actually, I do in the camera, but so, it's a way of relating horizontally through the chakras and the portals between the inner and outer world, and it's also a way of relating to each other. Chakras play out in the field of relationship. In fact, we have an online course coming up for Sacred Centers, the 7 levels of intimacy, that looks at the point of contact, chakra by chakra, between two people who are in a relationship and how that plays out. And not only relationship between two people, but, in this world, we're all in our chakras together. Now, chakras can be balanced or unbalanced. We can pull into them. We can pull out. They're the spiral vortex of energy. They can get blown out of shape. They can be excessive or deficient. And let's actually talk about that for a moment. As we grow up through life, we encounter challenges and difficulties. It just happens. Nobody has a perfect childhood. Excuse me while I drink some water. And whatever was dealt to you, whatever hand you had to deal with in your life, you had to deal with that from your core and from your chakras. And so maybe you didn't get enough to eat and your survival was threatened. Maybe you didn't feel safe. Maybe you didn't feel understood emotionally. Maybe you had a very authoritarian parent that made it scary to take your power. Maybe you didn't feel loved. Maybe no one really talked to you. Maybe you had no encouragement for developing your more spiritual aspects. These affect all of us as we are building our body, as we are building our programming, as we are building our whole, biological, psychological, spiritual system. And the way we respond to difficulty is either by increasing our energy in order to deal with a threat, like having a fever when you're threatened with an organism, like learning how to fight and defend yourself because bullies pick on you, staying up all night studying for a test because you're not prepared. That's ways of increasing our energy in order to deal with a challenge. Or another strategy is to decrease our energy, to shut down in order to get away from something, in order to minimize the impact of something. And this happens chakra by chakra. So someone who has survival threats to their survival when they're growing up, they may have gone to an overcompensating first chakra, which would be excessive, saying, well, I'm going to make a big heavy body so that I feel really grounded and safe because my survival was threatened, and if I'm got a lot of food in the cupboard, then I'll be safe, and if I keep myself eating, then I won't experience that anxiety. So that would be, or I cling to security, that would be an excessive first chakra. Or the first chakra could be deficient, and someone could make a really skinny body and move up and live in their head and live in their analysis and their conceptual mind and not really feel their body much and not be terribly grounded or connected with the earth. So you can play this out chakra by chakra, and as we go into the individual chakras, we'll talk about this a little bit more. But I just wanted to introduce the concept. So you could say excessive is an overcompensating response or defense, and deficient is an avoidant response. It's how we pull away from something. Okay, so now in the individual chakras, let me just pause for a moment and see if there are any questions. I think that there's a little chat room where you can type a question, not about a particular chakra because we're going to get there now, but just about anything I've said in general about the chakra system before we go into the individual chakras. Just type your question and it should appear on my screen. And you can type those questions at any time, so they will happen and I will pause and answer them. Okay, so let's look at the first chakra. Muladhara is its Sanskrit name, which translates to mean root support or foundation support. And this is a four-petaled lotus with a downward pointing triangle. That little symbol in the middle is the bija mantra. It is the seed sound of the first chakra, which is LAM, L-A-M. And the seed sounds are said to be a way to just access the vibrational essence of a particular chakra. So as its name, root support, might imply, its element is earth, and it represents solid matter, our bones, our muscles, the earth, the survival, the life force as it comes into the physical body. And the orientation that says before we can go on the journey, we need to have a vehicle. The body is the vehicle in which we take the journey. Get one per lifetime. You can't trade in your car for a new model. You can change some of the parts, but that is your vehicle for the entirety of your lifetime. And in order to really go on the journey, we have to get down in the vehicle. We have to be embodied, because this is the instrument that receives on all the frequencies. So we have to be embodied by plugging into the earth, by being in the here and now, not by being in some lofty otherworldly place, but by coming down and in and grounding ourselves into the flesh of our bodies. And if we do that, we develop a sense of security and groundedness and steadfastness and calm and focus and discipline from which we can manifest what we need. And so we can manifest what we need to survive. We can manifest a job that pays us enough to meet our needs and pay our rent and have food and do a few things on the side. So, you know, it is the root chakra that gives us our sense of safety and stability and constancy and commitment and embodiment. And I already went into the excess and deficiency here. Excess would be making too big a body, eating too much, being too materialistic, thinking that that alone is going to save you. Deficient is going to be avoiding all of those things. Have a difficult time manifesting, difficult time earning money, difficult time with your health, difficult time focusing and grounding and staying put and being steady. So we want to balance that chakra to have, good, solid grounding principles, to be focused, to be alive, to be safe and secure and rooted, so that once the roots go in the earth, we go to the next chakra, which is the element water, then we water those roots. The second chakra, located in the abdomen area and the hips and the sacrum and the genitals, is called Svadhisthana, which means one's own place. And the idea here is that we need to occupy our own place. And it's interesting, the Occupy movement, I was just talking to somebody about that in an interview this morning. In some ways, it's saying we are not really occupying our bodies. We're not really occupying our chakras. So to really be in your own place where you are feeling what you're feeling, you are having the desire you're having, you are moving from that place out into the world. The other interesting thing is that in Sanskrit, the verb svada means to sweeten. And I said this in a class once, and one of my students said, oh, it means your own sweet place. And so if we think of our sexuality and our private parts, so to speak, that is kind of a place that brings sweetness and pleasure into our lives. And so the second chakra's purpose is to allow the body to open to pleasure and the movement of the life force energy that happens through opening to the realm of eros, or the erotic. And that pleasure invites us to expand where pain tells us to contract. So when we are getting a massage, when we are engaged in sexuality, when we're seeing a beautiful sunset or having a good meal, the senses expand, and we actually, with more sensitivity, we have more information coming in to feed consciousness. It actually stimulates consciousness. If we close down the senses, we make everything the same, then consciousness starts to go to sleep. So the second chakra is a way that we get moving. It's a way that the senses are like a gateway where the outer world comes in through my eyes, through my ears, through my nose, through my touch, through my, all my senses can bring the outer world to the inside to stimulate consciousness and my understanding of that world. Many people see this as kind of a bad chakra, but actually it's got the duality of light and shadow. If we get too much into our senses with an excessive chakra, then we want to satisfy our senses all the time. We're always thinking about pleasure. What can I eat? What can I do? Now I want drugs. Now I want to drink. Now I want to have sex. Da, da, da. And then we get roped into the pleasure and we don't go on to the other chakras. But if we deny pleasure, we go to the deficient side of this chakra, then life gets very boring and dull and just not much fun, and we're not very happy and we're not very juicy. Water makes life juicy. So Svadhisthana chakra, being in your own place and opening to the waters of pleasure, will make your life juicy. And if it's juicy, things will start flowing and moving along. Okay, now moving into chakra 3, Manipura, which means lustrous gem. The third chakra is in the solar plexus area. It rules over digestion and rules over your midsection, your belly, and it's the element fire. So the lustrous gem is what happens when that's burning. When I have seen my own third chakra, when it has become illuminated, it is like a multifaceted gem that's glowing in the firelight, in oranges and reds and golds and yellows. And that lustrous gem is the fire within us. It is the fire of the soul. It is the fire of our will. It's our vitality, our internal engine, our get up and go. It's our ability to move our body into action, to take action, and to fulfill the will, which is moving energy in alignment with our intention. So if I have an intention to clean my house, I need some energy to do it with. So, if I have that intention and I'm sick in bed and exhausted, well, we all know there's a very good road paved with those intentions. We have the intention to do something, we didn't do it. And then you have little kids that are full of energy, but they don't have much intention about it. But the development of the will is pulling consciousness down in the form of intention into the third chakra, moving it with energy in the body, matter and movement coming together to create energy. And when energy fulfills intention, we get things done. And when we successfully fulfill our intention, we call that power. So power here in the third chakra is really mastery. How do we master our own life force energy? How do we become masters of our will? Not dominators, not controllers, but masters of that. Okay, take a breath. I've been kind of talking nonstop, and just take a breath and notice where the breath goes. Notice how it goes into the heart. Air is the element of the heart chakra, anahata. Anahata means unstruck or unhurt. And so what it means about the chakra is that, first of all, in order to come into the heart chakra, we need to be not causing harm. As a culture, we're not going to get to the heart chakra when we're dominating other people and causing wars in other countries. When you're hurting someone else, you're not in your heart chakra. Or when you're not in your heart chakra, you can cause pain to others. But the other aspect is that as we do our own healing work, we unhurt the harm that we have all probably experienced, betrayals and loss and rejection and, lost loved ones and deaths and things like that, and loss of parts of ourselves. As we do that healing work, then the heart chakra becomes more unstruck. It is more whole. And the unstruck sound is said to be the sound that is made without any two things striking. So unstruck or unhurt. So what is that sound when we're no longer struggling in the third chakra and, making friction and all that, and we finally just, here's the sound of something coming together without striking. And that brings us to the balance point of the heart. You notice that it is two intersecting triangles, spirit coming down into matter, matter rising up into spirit. And this six-pointed star is also the symbol for the sacred marriage. The sacred marriage is not just between the archetypal divine feminine and divine masculine, but it is the marriage of opposites, heaven and earth, mind and body, spirit and matter, all those opposites that I talked about weaving together in polarity that came from the tantric tradition from which the chakras originated. The thing about the heart chakra, it is the exact center of the chakra system. There are 3 chakras above and 3 chakras below. So it is the integrator of what is above with what is below. It is the balance point. And to open the heart chakra is to come into balance. To come into balance is to invite the heart chakra to open. And when balance is there, we have peace. And peace is what happens with the unstruck sound. Peace can be in our meditation. Peace can be in our relationships. Peace can be in our world. And as we open to the heart, peace is one of the values of a heart chakra era, a new era for humanity where we can harvest the money spent in defense. And if we're not making wars, we can take that into education and feeding people and dealing with our environmental problems. So as we come into this era of the heart, peace will be an essential part of it. Okay, now we come into the 5th chakra, which I have been kind of exercising nonstop on this call. Vishuddha, which means purification. And here again, there's 2 ways to look at this dynamic. One is that we need to purify our life force energy in order to rise up into the higher chakras. That chakra by chakra, it's a process of purification to open to the higher and subtler levels. The other aspect is that communication, speaking our truth, is a purification. And that when we speak, we are actually actively creating our reality. If I say, bring me a glass of water, or go away, or do this or do that, I'm creating a reality. And if I'm speaking a deep truth, then that can purify a situation. If it's confusion, lies will bring a non-pure substance in. And it is said, as we're moving upward now, we're past the halfway point in the mukti, the liberation, that you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So knowing and speaking the truth gives us a sense of freedom energetically. And so as we speak our truth, we also want to embrace the properties of sound and vibration, which is about creating harmony, finding how those vibrations move into resonance, working with sacred sounds to bring harmony into the subtle matter of our body. So this is not only the element sound, but in the old text it was called the element ether. So this rules the etheric field. And the etheric field is the sum total of all our vibrations. What you ate, what you think, what you do, what you look at, what you read, all of that comes out through your flesh into your etheric field. And that is a vibrational field. So we're getting into subtler and subtler levels of energy here. And then we come to the Ajna chakra, which is the command center. It means to both perceive and to command. And this is the third eye that is situated between our two physical eyes. And it is the chakra related to the element light. Light is how we see. Light is how we, see what's there, and then we close our eyes, and in our imagination, we can create images and remember something that you saw. You could create an image of the face of a loved one right now by closing your eyes. It's sort of like seeing on the inside. So the whole purpose of this chakra is to see. Seeing is the recognition of pattern. It is turning the photons that hit your eye into some kind of meaning. And that's actually a more seventh chakra aspect. So the sixth and seventh work very closely together. But it is being able to see patterns. That's what intuition is. It is being able to have illumination. It's being able to have a vision. It's your dreams. It's your memory. It's that whole visual realm of consciousness, which is really 90% of our thinking. And recording information comes with pictures, which is why I like to do a slideshow here as we do the talk. So you're not just hearing a disembodied voice, but you're actually seeing my face, a real person. You're seeing pictures. Then we have both the right and the left brain working together. And one of the reasons that's important in sixth chakra is that it's said that these figure eight nadis that go around the chakras up and down that we saw back at an earlier slide, they meet in the sixth chakra, which says that consciousness, the dualities of consciousness that we need to employ and weave together, collapse into non-duality at the sixth chakra. They collapse back into unity. When we talk about single-pointed mind, if the eye be single, the whole body is filled with light. We talk about non-dual consciousness as a state of awareness where there is no awareness of your awareness. There's no dialogue. There's no person saying, I'm doing a good meditation right now. There's no me and you. There's no observer. There's just pure, empty awareness. And that non-dual consciousness is what takes us up to the crown chakra, the Sahasrara, which means infinite, or the thousand-fold, thousand-petaled lotus. And this is the realm of pure consciousness. You can think of that thousand-petaled lotus as infinitely blooming with all the things around you that you can be aware of. And yet, your awareness exists at the deep center of that lotus. And if we can remain centered, even while everything is blossoming around us, then we have that point that is in alignment with all our other chakras, And like a lotus, we can receive the sunlight. We can receive the cosmic energy, the heavenly energy. We can receive consciousness. We can receive downloads. When I sit down to meditate, I have to sit there with a pen and paper because I get downloads of ideas or memories of things that I need to do that day. Or, it's like Spirit is just saying, I've been waiting for you to be quiet enough for me to tell you this. And now that you're quiet, boom. So the Sahasrara petals are absorbing awareness and bringing it into my little biocomputer in the same way that your own, laptop can go out on the internet, which is a vast field of information and consciousness, and it can download anything from the internet that you point your browser to. Well, the facet of consciousness that downloads is our attention. If I put my attention on the tree outside my window, I get an experience of that. That's what I see. That's what my consciousness is aware of. In the seventh chakra, we start to withdraw consciousness from the outside world. So instead of being aware of objects, we are aware of consciousness itself. Consciousness is looking at itself. Awareness is becoming aware of our own awareness. It's sort of like it's a little puzzle here, but the more you contemplate the fact that you are an aware being, and the more you have your witness say, well, what am I aware of right now? What am I thinking? Where do those thoughts come from? Who's creating them? The more we realize that consciousness is running the whole show. Consciousness is what is seeing out from your eyes. Consciousness is what you are hearing right now. Consciousness is forming my words. Consciousness is what falls in love when you're conscious of, the beauty of another being. Consciousness in the third chakra knows what to do, knows how to take action. Consciousness in the second chakra becomes aware of what we're feeling. And consciousness in the first chakra is operating or driving the vehicle of the body. So consciousness is running the whole show. The difference is in seventh chakra, it is just pure consciousness, and it is the infinite realm of consciousness where there are no limitations of space and time, and we call this the connection to the divine, to the universal, to the infinite. From my finite being that exists in one place in one time at the moment, I can only be in one place in one space at a time, and I'm finite. I'm only going to live so many years, but I'm in a field that is infinite, and I can become aware of that field. And of course, this is beyond thoughts, and sometimes, I just like to say this realm is about, hey, are you not thinking what I'm not thinking? Yeah, it's the place we get to in meditation, where we get beyond our thoughts. So I've talked about the chakras individually, but in actuality, we are a whole system. All the chakras are operating together all the time. It's not really possible for me to just look at something, without having maybe some words in my head going, oh, that's an interesting tree, or that flower is an interesting variety of rose, or gee, that person looks mad when they're talking to me, or, interpreting and seeing and hearing, and at the same time I'm feeling something, and at the same time I have urges in my body to do something, and all of them are operating together. We can talk about them separately, but what's interesting is that some chakras are more dominant in your experience than others. So you may come largely from your head. You may come largely from your power, and that you're insecure and you're seeking to have power. You may come largely from your feeling realm, and you experience life through your emotions. Some people are feel first and think later. Some people are think first and feel later. So we look at what chakras are leading the way, and how not only to balance a chakra within itself, but to simultaneously balance the chakras with each other, so that you have this profound formula for wholeness as a recipe, as a map, as a guide for how to become whole by addressing each of the chakra levels and making sure they're all functioning. And with that, we connect mind and body, heaven and earth, and we find the stepping stones to take our path to the beyond, into the mystery, and back again. And these are tools for conscious evolution. This is just my website for live workshops and teleseminars. We have many teleseminars and books and blogs. But I'm leaving a little time right now. We have a few minutes left on the call, now that I've done my little spiel, to take your questions. What do you have? What questions do you have about your own chakras, about the chakra system in general, about anything I have said? So just type them in, and let's see what we can answer. I see that a couple people are typing. The question is not, there's a little time delay in this. But, you got to admit, this is pretty amazing technology, that I can be sitting here in Novato, California, talking to all of you in various parts of the world in different time zones. Okay, we have a question. Do you find any particular music useful in balancing the chakras? Yes, I do, and we have actually some music that we sell on our website. We have some chants, we have some dance music, we have some meditation music. I don't believe that certain tones are necessarily a person's like fourth chakras, F sharp or something. I think that depends on the person. And, in my classes, I go much more into sound and how it affects the chakras. But I do think, calming music will open your heart, that stimulating music might get your third chakra going, other kinds of music stimulates your emotions. And so, it's not like I would say a particular piece is fourth chakra or seventh chakra. I think it would really be based on your own experience, that there's certain pieces of music that I say, oh, that just touches my heart. That makes me want to cry. That makes me want to leap for joy. Oh, that music really gets me going. If I want to clean the kitchen, I put on some rousing music. So I think it's more dictated by your personal experience. But we do have some music that is, geared toward the chakras. You can find that on sacredcenters.com, several CDs that we sell. So I see someone else is typing here. The question has not come up yet. From James, we have, is there an atypical interaction between the chakras that cause gifts like mediumship, clairvoyance, or clairaudience? Interesting question. Is there an atypical interaction between the chakras? I would say, in my experience, and having been working with this for 40 years and traveled all over the world teaching and meeting lots of people and reading their chakras and being a therapist and just based on my own personal anecdotal experience, that people with strong mediumship or clairvoyant abilities tend to have some lower chakra wounds. In other words, they were sent a bit out of their body. And in being sent out of their body, they had more contact with the non-material world, with the spiritual world, and more access to it. I wouldn't say that's automatically true of everyone, and it's certainly easy, not easy, but there's certainly ways that you can train yourself in clairvoyant training. I did a training for a few years, many years ago, that taught me actually more about being in my body. You can train yourself to be more clairaudient or to become a medium. But people who do it naturally without any training have a proclivity for it. What I've found is they are often a bit out of their body. And so their upper chakras are more open and their lower chakras are not so open. We have another question coming in from Lilani. How do you think diet affects the chakras? That's a great question. I talk about this in detail in Wheels of Life. In general, in your first chakra, to support that, since the first chakra is your structure, you want protein. And I often see people that don't get enough protein, they start to feel very ungrounded. Now, this does not dictate that you necessarily need to eat meat. You can get plenty of protein through a vegetarian diet. And, whether people eat meat or not, that's their own personal choice. But they do need to get enough protein to stay grounded. The second chakra being the element water, I would say that's your liquids. The third chakra being about, moving into action and metabolizing, that would be your starches. The fourth chakra I think about as our greens, as our vegetables. The fifth chakra as fruit. What do you want to eat when you have a cold or a sore throat? You want to eat lots of oranges and grapefruit. And, just eat very lightly and clean the throat chakra out. Fruit is very purifying and the highest on the food chain. When we get into the upper chakras, it's not so much about food anymore. Now it's about, digesting images and thoughts. But, you could look at, and I'm not going to say that just eating salad is necessarily going to open your heart. It's not quite that simple. But that we want a balance of all these foods as a way to balance the chakras. So you want enough starch, you want enough liquid, you want enough protein, you want enough greens, you want enough fruit, and that's a way to balance the chakras. And if you're out of balance in one, you might want to do a little bit more of that food. Any other questions? Type away. From Meredith, we have, thank you so much for doing this. I have your first book and have watched your DVD over and over. Could you please speak a bit about your newest book? Oh, I'd be delighted to. The newest book is called The Global Heart Awakens. Its subtitle is Humanity's Rite of Passage from the Love of Power to the Power of Love. And in it, I deal with 3 basic questions that are essential to any guiding myth for a culture. Who are we? Where did we come from? Or really, how did we get into this mess we're in on the planet? And the third question is, where are we going? And in doing that, I look at the chakra system as representing basic operating systems that humanity has adopted at different stages of our evolution. And I go through, well, who are we? We're adolescents coming into an initiation into our adulthood. The initiation is what's coming down on the planet, our environmental difficulties, our social difficulties, our economic difficulties. They are all trying to initiate a new organizing principle. And I believe that organizing principle is not just moving from adolescence to adulthood, which it is, but moving from an organizing principle based on the third chakra, which is the love of power. It is a top-down hierarchical chain of command organizing principle, organized by authority, people on top telling other people what to do, to a new organizing principle based on the power of love that's based on collaboration and connection and networking and community and really seeing everything as a web of relationships and a web of connection and moving from greed to green, moving from hierarchy to holarchy, moving from markets to networks and stockholders to stakeholders, moving from procreation to co-creation. So I talk about all this huge shift that we're going on the planet as an overarching paradigm into which all the other little shifts can fit, the shifts in economic systems, the shift in politics, the shift in green technology, the shift in, our communication technologies, the shift in how we regard relationships, to have a broader way to hold relationships, not just, heterosexual dyads, but we can have gay relationships and we can have non-sexual relationships and we can have, a broader view of all the ways that we can come into the heart as an organizing principle for society. That means coming into a peaceful culture that no longer wages war, coming into an environmentally balanced culture. And since we were in the third chakra for the last 5,000 years, this is a big shift. And it's not going to happen overnight. Not all of these things that I'm talking about are even going to be realized in my short lifetime. We are becoming, believe it or not, a more peaceful and less violent culture. Studies have shown that violence has declined steadily and incredibly over the millennia, and they even continue to do so even though the news keeps reporting violence. It's actually, declining. I probably won't see in my lifetime the end to all wars, although I would like to. So this is a really big shift. I don't know how long the heart chakra stage will last, but the third chakra stage was about 5,000 years. So I talk about where we're going in terms of economics and politics and personal relationships and how to employ the principles of the heart chakra as a guiding myth for society. And this book will be out in July. It's being shipped as we speak. I also have a course coming up, an online course called Becoming a Love-Powered Evolutionary. And so I see that the people that will be leading this are people that come from the heart and are empowered to be activists and helpers and to be of service in the world. And so if you're interested in taking that course, there's a free call on July 2nd. You can find out about it through my workshop, my website, sacredcenters.com, and through the Shift Network, shiftnetwork.com. So I see also, thank you so very much. I really appreciate all you've taught me tonight. Thank you, Lisa. Valerie Pop says thank you. Meredith says thank you for adding to that evolution of consciousness. Looking forward to reading the book. And Jim Bosco put up the website for everyone to see. And we are coming to the end of our time. So I ask you to close your eyes, acknowledge your inner temple, turn the lights on, and find a way to open your chakras and let your light shine out into the world. Thank you very much, and good night.